Good evening. This is the Guilford Board of Education. It is Monday night, November 13th. I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I just want to make a quick note in recognition that Veterans Day was this past Saturday, observed Friday in our schools, and the district sent out an email today with a link that gave a little bit of a snapshot of what happened at each of our 7 schools in observance of Veterans Day. I really encourage the community to take a look. I now can't even remember when we first stopped having school close that day and instead really spent time each year on that day in our schools, either inviting veterans in or making sure we were doing programming for kids to really make them aware of the importance of that day. So I really encourage the community to take a look at that. It's also a special evening tonight. We did have an election last Tuesday, and so one of the things we're going to be doing tonight is having the oath of office administered to those individuals who were reelected last Tuesday. We are extremely lucky to have Attorney Bill Bloss with us tonight. Bill served on the Board of Ed for 20 years, the chair as 14. I had the great pleasure of working with him for a good part of that time, and he has really served as, quite frankly, as a mentor to me. So, Bill, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we welcome you to come up to the podium. Would you like me to call people up, or would you like to call them up?
I can do it. I've got a list.
Excellent. I figured you did.
And I would first call you, Dr. Balistraci.
All righty.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, the duties of the office of member of the Guilford Board of Education to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I will. Thank
Congratulations.
You. Thank you.
John Delaventura. Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, the duties of the office of member of the Guilford Board of Education to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I will. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
And Dr. Richard Hirsch. Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, the duties of office of member of the Guilford Board of Education to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I will.
Congratulations. And Kristen Peck, please. Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, the duties of office of member of the Guilford Board of Education to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I will.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
you would just give me a brief point of privilege while I do the paperwork here.
I've certainly heard it.
Well, I suspect that there was a time when all 4 new members of the board were actually incumbent members, although I can't think of a time. And I think that it is an amazing testament to the newly sworn-in members to provide stability in what has been a tremendously unstable time with the pandemic. And I, on behalf of the citizens of the town of Guilford, I want to thank you in particular for choosing to run again. I know it was probably something you thought hard about, but I know that you recognize that you can continue to contribute in a very productive way and continue to make this one of the best school districts in the United States. Stability matters, and I'm on behalf of the citizens of Guilford, we're pleased that you chose to run again, and we look forward to more leadership from you, although hopefully in a little less exciting times in the next 4 years. So I do want to thank you all, and all 9 of you really, but in particular the 4 who were sworn in tonight. And if I can just say one other quick thing. The people who thought it was a good idea to vote in favor of improved HVAC in the older schools, they were right. And we have made those improvements, and that's really one of the only reasons we were able to get through that. So think infrastructure, right, Mr. Gurnham?
Thank you so very much for being here tonight. And for,
My pleasure.
For doing so. I also just wanted to make a note to the community and especially thank those who were able and did vote last week. It was an uncontested election, and so to have the number of people who went out and voted and really supported the municipal election process and the folks that are on the various boards in our town is much appreciated, and I think was very meaningful. So I really appreciate that. One of the other things then that happens every 2 years after an election is that the board then needs to take the opportunity to elect officers, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary for the board. I will be calling for nominations in sequence for each of those positions. Per state statute, we will be voting on paper. So after I call for nominations for each role, I'm going to hand a piece of paper out to my colleagues. We are going to print the name of the Board of Ed member we're voting for, and then sign and print the ballot. I'm going to ask everyone then to pass them to our left and ask Dr. Freeman to then count them up and report out. Again, so we will do this for every role. And so we're going to start with the chair, and I'm going to ask if there are nominations for the chair for the Board of Ed for the next 2 years.
So moved. I move to nominate Dr. Katie Balistraci for board chair. With 12 years on the Guilford Board of Education, including 4 as chair, Katie has demonstrated tremendous leadership both during the COVID pandemic and defending the board's diversity initiatives against public critique. She is committed to an academic excellence and is a skilled navigator of policy, budgets, and negotiations. Her holistic approach, integrating social and emotional well-being, aligns with the evolving needs of our students. Katie is committed to honesty and principled leadership and ensures ethical governance. I look forward to our continued work together with Katie Balistraci as board chair.
Thank you. Is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, I am now going to hand out these color-coded orange pieces of paper, make sure I have enough, and again, ask everyone to fill them out and then pass them to our left.
I am pleased to announce that Dr. Katie Balistraci has been re-elected Chair of the Guilford Board of Education. Congratulations.
I will simply say thank you to my colleagues for your support, and just promise to continue to do my best to serve this community, serve Guilford Public Schools, and serve this board to the best of my ability, and appreciate your confidence. Thank you. All right, Vice Chair. Is there a nomination for Vice Chair, please?
I would like to nominate Moira Rader for Vice Chair. Moira is both a dedicated and intrepid member of the Board of Education. She's currently on her second term and has already been serving as our Vice Chair for the last 2 years in very good fashion, I would add. She has always stepped up to the plate to fill your shoes, Dr. Balistraci, when you're not here, or when you might need some assistance with something. I know I've personally looked to Moira several times when I've needed a little bit of guidance or help navigating certain issues. It also, I think, is no secret that Moira is our state representative, and that behooves the board, I would say, in Hartford and statewide. So with that, I would like to nominate Moira.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There are
You
two
beat me.
I take it back.
We'll share the ball. I got to second too.
Are there any other nominations for Vice Chair? All right, hearing none, I'm going to ask everyone to fill out this.
I am pleased to announce that Moira Rader has been unanimously re-elected to Vice Chair of the Guilford Board of Education. Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody, for that vote of confidence. I've thoroughly enjoyed my 6+ years on this board. It means a tremendous amount to me to have the support of this board, more importantly, the community. So I just hope to continue to serve and be a good co-pilot to Dr. Balistraci and all of our fellow board members. So thank you.
Wonderful. All right, and now the position of Secretary. Is there a nomination for the position of Secretary?
I nominate Kristen Peck, who is currently serving, and I apologize that I didn't prepare a wonderful statement, but Kristen has been the secretary for the last 2 years, which is when I came on the board. I know that for us as the independents on the board, she has been a tremendous resource, a fabulous mentor. And I couldn't imagine having gone through those last 2 years without her. So I think she is a tremendous asset to this board. She, again, steps up. She's the head of the policy committee. She has just done a really fabulous job in my eyes and really helped us become better board members, and I'm sure will continue to do so as secretary.
Terrific. Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Are there any other nominations for secretary? All right, hearing none, I ask you to print out your ballot, please. Sorry, wrong name. See, there we go. Thank you.
And it gives me great pleasure to announce that Kristen Peck has been re-elected to her position as Secretary of the Guilford Board of Education.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So that we will then continue to hopefully serve this board and serve this community again to the best of our ability, and again appreciate our colleagues and their support. I am now going to go to item number 5 on the agenda, action on the meeting minutes of October 10th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of that evening?
So moved.
Second.
Corrections? Any corrections? I have 2 minor ones and then one of a little more substance. Very minor on the first page, under number 5, financials. The reporting of the total in the paragraph has a period instead of a comma for the first, so it should just read 6 million for the expenditures. On the bottom of page 4, very bottom, under 9.5.1, meal charging, dining services, meal charging have been proposed to, I think the word is keep, in compliance with state regulations. Just a minor typo. And then on the bottom of page 5, I just noted we were missing the text for adjourning out of executive session and the voting to do that. And Terry, I am more than willing to kind of share the actual language with you afterwards if that helps. But number 13, executive session, discuss pending litigation. Just at the end of that sentence, I would suggest adding, on a motion made by Mr. Del Ventura and seconded by Mr. Scretta, the board voted unanimously to leave executive session. And then in my notes, I don't know if other people had notes, under adjournment, the board returned to public session at 9:20. And then the meeting was adjourned at 9:21. Any other?
Nope.
Okay. And again, Terry, I can give you that if you want. Any other comments or questions? All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please say aye.
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 Is that everyone? Any opposed or an abstention? All right. I'm sorry?
Vote to approve the minutes and was not.
Oh, no, that's right. So you should abstain, right? So Mrs. Faulkner abstains because she was not present at the meeting. All right, thanks. Number 6 is public comments for topics on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on topics on the agenda? Please come on up to the podium. We ask if you don't mind just providing your name and address. If you are a student, you do not need to provide your address.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all again. My name is Addison Smith. I'm the captain of the GHS crew team. I was here last month to introduce our proposal for increased funding for the team. Today, I will provide additional facts to support this request, and you will hear testimony from my teammate Taya Hawks and her mother, Lori Hawks. So the handout that we also emailed to you on October 30th contains 3 sections. The first is a restatement of our 3-year proposal for incremental funding required to cover some spring season expenses and to reduce the pay-to-play athlete fees enough to increase accessibility for all students at GHS. The second section, which is the arrow that you see, reflects the history of the Board of Ed funding since the beginning of the sport at GHS. As you can see, there's very little incremental investment over time for this sport. Lastly, the third section is a summary of insights of GHS crew funding compared to 9 other high schools in the Connecticut Public Schools Rowing Association. This data shows that GHS falls in the lowest cohort of funding. We simply seek parity with these schools for the spring season in the spirit of financial accessibility for all GHS students. Now I'd like to invite Taya and Lori to share their testimonies about how GHS crew has impacted their lives and family.
Hi, my name is Taya Hawks. I am a student and member of the GHS rowing team. Before my first crew practice, I was nervous about a variety of things. I had only one friend going into the team with me, and I had no idea who would be on the beach that day. Following that first practice, the instant connection I felt with the team was unmatched. Throughout my high school career, the crew team has been a constant source of love that is much needed in any teenager's life. I used to struggle to recognize my place with my peers. I did not fit into any one group exclusively, and this caused a lot of confusion for me. Once I joined the crew team, I knew exactly my place. Rowing holds the team in close proximity and enforces teamwork and interaction. The crew team has provided me with my best friendships, and I talk to almost all of my friends from crew every day. Our team often gathers for bonding experiences entirely out of our own will. One of the many benefits of the sport is that there is no room for drama as it harms the performance of the entire team. This allows for open communication within the team, more so than any other group I've ever been involved in. The love and togetherness within the team members is not only true for my class. Every year I see a new class of rowers repeat exactly what was true for our team, and the upperclassmen continue to advise and welcome the new members as the previous years had for me. Please consider the team for more funding, as I, in addition to the rest of the team, believe that more people should be able to feel how I felt when I joined the crew that first day.
Hello, my name is Lori Hawks, and I live at 209 Durham Road. My husband and I have been part of Friends of Guilford Rowing, the parent group for Guilford Rowing, for over 8 years, with our 3 daughters who have all participated in both the spring and fall rowing seasons. Each of our daughters benefited from being on crew in different ways. My eldest was a coxswain. She gained leadership skills and confidence by taking ownership of her duties and learning the best methods to motivate her teammates. She says to this day she misses her time as a coxswain on Lake Quanapug. My middle daughter was a rower and at first lacked confidence as an athlete. By the time she graduated, with perseverance and determination, she improved tremendously, and while not the strongest rower, she had great pride in her technique. She even won the Most Improved award from her coach on senior night. My youngest, Taya, is here. She spoke on what crew means to her, but I believe rowing showed her how strong she is and how hard work only makes her stronger. All three have gained lifelong friends from this team and are better to have been a part of it. I fully support any funding that can help enhance this sport at the Guilford High School.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board for topics on the board agenda? All right, hearing none. We are going to go to review and approval of expenditures for the month of October.
Thank you. So I reviewed the financials this month and in conference with Lynn Trudeau, our business manager. So I'll report on the following financials from the month of October 2023. Expenditures for the month of October 2023 were $5,227,336.37. Our revenue for October was $31,378.47. Which includes a small amount for non-resident tuition, which we are now having staff participate in, $10,000 for tuition from Madison, and $187 and change for charging station revenue, which is great, and $320 donation to LEAT for the Eco Lab, and $20,553 for pre-K tuition, which is obviously once a year or twice a year intake with tuition. Salaries expended. The percentage of the budget expended approximates the prior year, meaning it's pretty close to what last year was. We have a few things that are new this year, and one of those is our safety monitors, and that is currently being paid through the town, which is using ARPA funds. And so we talked about this before, but we will have to be planning for inclusion in our upcoming budget for those positions. So we need to remember that as a board, and obviously working with the superintendent to plan for that. In purchase services, the percentage of the budget expended is higher than the prior year. And that's partly because right now we have paid out our fees to the IB program, which is International Baccalaureate program. But those fees will be then collected from families later this year when the students sit for their two-year exams. We also have some payments from the state for a portion of the cost of the adult ed program that we participate in for our older students, participating in various GED programs and other post-high school graduation programs. So the total payment detailed on the warrant for us this month is $1,963,128.99. Just in reviewing some of the more details, we went through this in great detail in the Operations Committee meeting. And as I mentioned, we're kind of going into budget season again like we do every year. And so some of the lines that we are seeing historically might run a little high. We're going to be looking to those to kind of try to better anticipate those costs. We have some in terms of, I'm just going to read the line to you so you better understand it. We call it safety, sanitation, and upkeeps of buildings and grounds. So it's a lot of our capital improvements around the campuses of our district, security elements and things like that. Obviously, we need to maintain and upkeep our buildings and implement security measures where we can. So that's going to be something we need to be looking towards as we develop our budget for next year. Other than that, there was just some typical costs, but one thing that caught my eye, and I think it's a really great thing that we incorporate into our Transition Academy, is there were some small hourly wages paid out. And what happens with these students is that they perform different tasks or jobs, and they are given a small payment stipend, and they learn how to receive a paycheck, cash that paycheck, manage that money, spend it at local businesses. And so it's also a lesson in learning in money management and earning money. So it's nice to see that included in our program. And other than that, that is really my report. Like, there was nothing outstanding, and like I said, we discussed in great detail in the Operations Committee certain line items. But that's my report.
Thank you. So is there a motion to approve the expenditures for the month of October 2023?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, number 8 on the agenda is communications. Does anyone have communications to report?
I had a lengthy, good conversation with a constituent, and to summarize it very briefly, this is a person who's often in our schools giving a lot of volunteer time, and their it was specifically toward the budget. Their concern was just that when we're prioritizing spend for next year, we do whatever we can to focus on the support staff and supporting the teachers. They're seeing the coverage, they're seeing building administration stretched thin, they're seeing teachers covering for other teachers. So they're just imploring us to, when we look at where we need to cut, where we need to invest heavily in building resources, our personnel.
Excellent, thank you. We are discussing tonight on the agenda as a receive item, the school calendar for next year, so I think we've gotten at least a couple of communications around that as well.
Very few, though.
Yeah, we received some, a couple months ago and then more recently. But again, it's a receive item tonight, so.
The
Yeah.
communication I've had, actually, I went out and asked people as I saw them, parents,
Yeah.
about the calendar.
Yeah.
Because I was really wanted, because we got a couple of emails of people who were pretty, they're really asking us not to change it from what we have it now, so that, and I probably spoke to a dozen families, and I thought it would be split somewhere. It was unanimously that they wanted to start after Labor Day, so I was surprised by that, but.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've gotten some of the emails we got, we'll talk about this, obviously we get calendars too, but a couple of months ago, were in support of changing it, and then we've gotten some in that direction as well.
I was
So,
surprised,
yeah.
honestly.
I'll
Okay.
share the same experience. I decided to kind of survey different pockets of friends, just
Yep.
to, get kids of different ages, and I thought it would be split, but most have, for very different reasons, but all kind of unanimously came to the fact that they would like us to keep it where it is. But to your point, we'll leave it open for
Yeah.
community discussion over this month. But it would be nice to hear from folks.
Okay. Other communications? All right. We are up to student representatives, and we have the chance to introduce a couple of new student representatives, which is wonderful, and I'm going to invite Ms. Chaff to come up and
Good evening,
do that.
everyone. Julia Chaff, principal at Guilford High School. Obviously, you know George and Clara, who could not be here this evening, but I wanted to introduce two new student representatives who will be joining George and Clara this year. First, we have Vincent Palatiello. Did I get it right, Vincent? Vincent's a junior. I first met Vincent in my advisory. I was one of the advisors in his advisory for 2 years, and then I got reassigned to a different advisory. But he made an impression on me just because of how affable he always is. I mean, in advisory, we often are having sort of kooky getting to know you activities, and he was always sort of a willing and positive participant in the group, which made him kind of stand out. He is also a baseball player. He is a strong supporter of all of our Guilford athletics. However, I often see him in the stands supporting his fellow Grizzlies on the sidelines. And so I think he's going to be a welcome addition. He also has volunteered quite a bit at the Branford Community Kitchen. So welcome to Vincent. And then Kyra Amani is also going to be joining us this year. She is a sophomore. She is, Kyra, did I say your last name correctly? Okay. I like to check afterwards just because I always feel like I'm saying their last names wrong. Kyra's a sophomore. She's currently in the process of founding a BIPOC student group for Guilford High School. She is in the debate club. She participates in theater and fencing, and she sings with a group called the Shoreline Soul. They're a gospel music group. She was an active participant last year in putting together our student-led Juneteenth celebration. So she is also going to be a welcome addition to the group. And I think between the four of them, they are an excellent representative cross-section of the high school. So I'm excited to have them here tonight and joining George and Clara.
Thank you. Welcome. And welcome. Welcome to you both. I'm sure that Ms. Chapp has described the role to you. You will hear me after your opportunity to kind of share reports, invite you to stay during the meeting, but also invite you if you would like to step away. We know that oftentimes you have many other commitments and homework, et cetera. I do want to note as well that one of the things I'd really like to do more of is make sure that we're hearing from you about topics that are important to you. So I really encourage you every month to reach out to Ms. Chaff. If you reach out to me, make sure you copy Ms. Chaff. You know, if there are topics you'd like, you're hearing about from your peers that you think would be important topics for us to think about on the Board of Ed, then we can receive that information from you and talk together about getting things on the agenda. So I really want you to feel like you're not just coming to report to us, but are really able to kind of have a voice as well. So, wonderful, welcome. And I'm going to turn it over to all of you now.
Thank you. Just to practice voicing an opinion on various topics. About starting school before or after Labor Day. I know it won't apply to me next year, but I was always very in favor of starting school later.
Okay. Good to hear from everybody.
To start off, news from Calvin Lee. Students in Mr. Prescott's class are learning about the benefits of protein with a new edition of the Nutrition Wall. It teaches valuable information about dieting and how to manage food consumption. They learned all about the pros of protein, like lowering the risk for osteoporosis, never too early to start, I guess. And they learned that they can find protein from many food groups that are both animal and plant-based. And a quick side note, my mom always reminds me about this. When I was in Calvin Lee in 2nd grade, and we had just finished our nutrition unit, I came home from school one day and I was just certain that I was never going to eat white bread again. From that morning on, I just switched completely to whole wheat. I would never.
You were not the only child who came home with clear definitions of what the result was supposed to be in our kitchen and not. So.
Speaking more food, students from Mrs. Israel's and Mrs. Trotta's classes extracted DNA from strawberries recently. Dr. Grace Chen, assistant professor at Yale's Department of Immunology, and mother of 2 students at Lee, led the DNA extraction. Students learned about the scientific process, genetics, and DNA extraction as a whole. So big thanks to Dr. Chen for providing this valuable experience. Skydome Planetarium also visited Calvin Lee. Students entered the model of a dome through a tunnel and were introduced to a star-filled sky. Mr. Tai led students through the sky, showing them the Milky Way galaxy, Greek constellations, the sun, and all the planets and the moon. Many students were excited to share their own knowledge of the skies, and they left wanting to learn more. So a big thanks goes out to the PTO for sponsoring Skydome, especially sponsoring Skydome's visit, especially Audrey Barr, who coordinated the event. Next up is news on Guilford Lakes. The elementary schoolers had a Red Ribbon Week where they focused on making smart, drug-free choices. A new kickball field also opened in the fields behind the school, and the kids are very excited about that, even though it's getting cold out. The winner of Principal for the Day was Ava McGibbon, who had a great time shadowing Principal Ryan around. The Anti-Bias, Anti-Racism Alliance provided copies of Jacqueline Woodson's book, The Day You Begin, to all Guilford elementary schools. The book encourages students to embrace differences, find common ground, and share stories with others. And moving on to Adams. The 7th and 8th graders have just finished their first quarter, and they're going to have their parent-team, not parent-teacher, conferences next week. Students enjoyed a fun spirit week from October 30th to November 3rd to celebrate their team and their school spirit with a Jersey Day and a Day for Hats for Hope, among other things. The 8th grade band and the orchestra students enjoyed a wonderful trip to the Boston Symphony Orchestra recently. Adams student Angela Wilson won Senator Cohen's Veterans Day essay contest and read her essay at the Veterans Day ceremony in Guilford. Personally, I was present for the ceremony, and she spoke very, very well. I was impressed by her essay, and it was great to see how the veterans also appreciated her words. The Adams Book Fair is this week, and students will visit the book fair during their language arts classes to browse and purchase books. There is also going to be a family night for Adams parents and students on Thursday.
This is from Mr. Douglas Hamill, the principal of Baldwin Middle School. Last Friday, we recognized veterans at Baldwin Middle School. In addition to learning about the history and importance of Veterans Day throughout the school day, students helped put together a wall of honor celebrating a veteran in their life. Veterans were also present in our lunch waves, joining students at lunch tables, engaging in informal conversations with our students. This was a highlight for our kids. In addition, Baldwin participated in a 2-minute national moment of silence at 2:11 p.m. to reflect the sacrifice and service of those who have served in our armed forces. Veterans Day has become a powerful day of learning for our students and staffs. Parent-teacher conferences are being held at Baldwin Middle School later this week, Thursday, November 16th, and Friday, November 17th. From Miss Natalie Hammond, the principal at A.W. Cox. On Friday, we had a Veterans Day celebration honoring and thanking veterans and active duty members within our A.W. Cox community. Fourth grade students sang to our veterans, and students in all grades made cards and wrote letters for our veterans. We all enjoyed this whole school assembly. Each month we have a theme Each month we have a theme that becomes the focus for our daily learning and conversations throughout the building. Our overall focus for the year is belonging, both academic and social emotional. In September, we focused on courage, and in October, we focused on acceptance. During the month of November, we are focusing our attention on gratitude and what we are thankful for. And during the month of December, we will be looking at joy and discussing what brings us happiness. We are looking forward to meeting the parents and guardians of our students during our parent-teacher conferences on November 20th and 21st.
Thank you.
And also for Baldwin Middle School, so it's for earlier in October, they gave many thanks to the BMS PTO for organizing their 3rd annual Trunk or Treat event for Baldwin students and families. The Trunk or Treat was held on Wednesday, October 25th, with another incredible turnout of nearly 1,000 people. And this year, the event was held on the grounds of Moroso in Guilford. Baldwin and the PTO thank Moroso for their generosity and help, and the Guilford High School student volunteers who helped at the event. And they also give a very big thank you to Dawn, excuse my pronunciation, but Carafino, who chaired and organized all aspects of the event, and her work and dedication had made BMS PTO Trunk or Treat an event that was incredibly special for their entire school community. And for their clubs, their after-school clubs are underway at Baldwin. Clubs meet on Tuesdays or Thursdays after school, and this year's clubs include the Drama Club, Art Club, Makers Club, Hiking Club, the Ukulele Club, the Futsal Club, and nearly 200 students participate in an after-school club at Baldwin. And then for Melissa Jones Elementary School, their PTO held a very well-attended fall festival, and their activities included games, a basket raffle, and a silent auction. And the MSJ kindergarten students tapped into their imagination as they designed and invented new toys in their makerspace. Then they proudly displayed their creations for the rest of the school to see and provide feedback on their innovative designs. And then for the 3rd grade students, they visited the Denison Pequotsaco's Nature Center as a part of their launch for their next language arts module that was titled Adaptations and the World of Frogs.
And also at GHS recently, we had our homecoming dance. It was very, very well attended, I have to say. In past years, it's got maybe 500 or 600 people, and this year we had 770 people go. Wow. I was privy to the numbers. I had the hectic pleasure of helping to plan it. There were about 195 freshmen and around 165 of all the other grades, along with 50 or so guests. Did either of you guys go to homecoming?
I did.
How'd you like it?
I thought it was very good.
Great.
Excellent. And fall sports are also just finishing up. I know the soccer team recently had their final game of the season, unfortunately. But they fought well. It was a close one against Hand. And the football team, their championships start near the end of November.
I think they're still in the
Kara, is the fall plan coming up soon?
Oh yeah, so they're in Tech Week right now, so they're just doing like the finishing touches and going through it. So they're gonna be at the school late, but yeah, and so they're gonna be performing on this coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent.
It'll be a great show.
The Harlem Wizards are also coming to play at the high school soon enough, this Sunday the 19th. The money from the game will go to different schools around the system. I believe whichever school has the most students attending will get a $200 bonus from the game. And money also goes to
little
project
incentive.
graduation from the Harlem Wizards game.
Great.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. so
Thank you
much.
all.
Anybody
Thank you,
have
everybody.
questions for any of our students on their?
I do.
You do. Go ahead.
What is trunk or treat?
Oh, it's mayhem.
It's like a
I don't-
safer version
No.
of trick-or-treating,
Yeah,
I
it
think,
is
so-
cars parked in a parking lot and you visit trunks for your treats rather than people's front doors.
But
Showing your age.
elaborately
elephants.
decorated.
What's that?
It's
elaborately
elaborately decorated with themes and yeah, you should look at some
impressive.
pictures of it. It was pretty impressive, yeah.
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 I could show you pictures one day when we're talking.
Look, back in my day, we walked 4 miles in the snow. Thank you, sorry.
Any other questions?
May I also add?
Yes,
some more
please, go ahead.
issues? The Guilford baseball team has started practices led by the captains, and although there is no coaches present, it's very friendly and helpful. There's no banter and very supportive of everyone, no matter your grade or skill level. I also found that students had interest in both the veterans coming in and speaking in the library and the impaired driving simulators also held here in the library.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah,
That's great.
Forgot about that.
good.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Excellent,
and welcome.
thank you.
guys.
Well done, yeah.
Excellent, all of you.
And once again, you are welcome to stay, but if you have things you need to get to, it is no problem for you to leave. Wonderful. Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Welcome aboard.
Yeah. All right, we are up to Superintendent's report. Dr. Freeman, I'm turning over to you.
Thank you. I have a fairly short report this evening. There are, however, just 2 quick updates that I'd like to give. Last Tuesday on November 7th, we had a professional development day scheduled for all faculty and staff in the system, and we're really particularly pleased with the way that the day ended up progressing. In the morning, teachers spent the first half of the day in their buildings working with principals and instructional coaches on building-based initiatives. Specifically, in most settings, they were digging into instructional practices and continuing to unpack and work with the portrait of the graduate and align work and lesson design to that portrait. The afternoon, the staff gathered collectively here at the high school for another really exciting opportunity. Amy Corrigan of the Teaching Systems Lab at MIT was here with us. She was producer on a film done a few years ago called We Have to Do Something Different. It is a film that focuses on real classroom teachers from around the country and specific teacher moves that those individuals are practicing successfully to make their classrooms places where all the students know that they belong. They are simple, they are, how do they refer to them? They refer to them as Monday and Today practices. They are someday and Monday practices. It's a big idea broken down into small bites with suggestions that you can employ tomorrow in your classrooms. So Amy Corrigan introduced her film to all of us. We were gathered in the gymnasium to watch the film together. When the film ended, staff members, faculty members from all 7 buildings broke up into small groups in different classrooms to unpack what they had seen and talk about what they could employ tomorrow in their classrooms from the film. Amy and I were able to walk around together and visit those rooms. She was able to interact with staff members as they did that unpacking. And then at the end of the day, everybody committed in a checkout slip to what they were going to do the next day. And it was wonderful to sit and read the list of the small pieces that teachers had taken away that they were going to embed into their classrooms the next morning. So again, I just want to sort of reemphasize how we're doing really big picture work with Dr. Harrison during the early release days. And again, he'll be back on March 8th working with all our teachers. We've got the case study model from edethics out of Harvard that we're using to practice those skills, and then had the opportunity just this last Tuesday to look at work coming out of MIT, all built around the idea of how we can make sure that every student knows and believes that they belong in our schools and can therefore be more academically successful in the schools. It was a really exciting day. While all of that was rolling out, there were selected special education teachers and paraprofessionals who were trained and recertified in physical management training, which is necessary to help some of our students behave safely and stay focused during the school day. And one that I was particularly excited about is the day that we built for our new safety monitors. And they were mentioned earlier in the meeting today, but the new safety monitors who are working in the schools spent the morning working with one of our local residents who also happens to be an FBI agent assigned to the New Haven office, and they went through the FBI training for early warning signs, what to be aware of in your environment and how to keep a safe environment and how to look for that safe environment. They moved from that into Alice intruder training, which all of our teachers do every year, but this was the first time for the safety monitors to go through the Alice training. And they finished their day working with members of the special education team, learning strategies for de-escalating students, students who are becoming escalated and students who need help calming down in those situations. It was a really thoughtful, well-planned, and exciting day to be here in Guilford Public Schools. Even though it was a day that we did not invite our students to be in, it was still a rich, full day of learning for the adults in the system on Tuesday. Just wanted to share that with all of you and share it with the community as well. And happy to answer any questions if there's any about Tuesday.
Anybody have questions?
In which case, I'll just remind the board, but update the community about our work on the budget. And so at this point, we have had 2 public meetings around the early budget build. We hosted a community forum where the board had the opportunity, the operations committee of the board had the opportunity to listen to community, parent, student, and athlete input on the budget. And we heard some more of that here this evening, which was exciting to hear. We also had a meeting with the leadership team where the board had an opportunity to sit with assistant superintendents and directors and principals and talk about the needs that they are seeing in the budget moving forward. At this point, we're beginning our office meetings. We're bringing in all the directors, all the department area heads, and all of the principals to begin working on our budget. That administrative draft of the budget will be presented to you, the board, and the community for the first time on January 8th here at a public meeting, the regular January Board of Education meeting. And again, really important, the public will have opportunities on January 22nd and 23rd to comment on that draft budget before you, the board, are asked to take any action, make any adjustments or changes to that budget. So at this point, we are in the thick of budget season. We'll be working, the business office will be working on putting together that draft for all of you.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
And that concludes my relatively brief report for the evening.
And as we noted simply tonight, with public comment on board items on the agenda, the public may continue if there are things that they want the board to hear about ideas for the budget. And then we will certainly kind of feed those to the administration as well. And then, of course, the public forums at the end of January, at which time we will be hearing input on an actual formed draft budget. So, terrific. Any other questions for Dr. Keith? Yes, go ahead.
Quick comment. When we met with the district leadership, there was kind of a theme of, for budget purposes, a theme that we need to kind of simultaneously support large systemic programs that are going to help promote our curriculum, as well as like the portrait of the
graduate, yeah.
the graduate, which are at times theoretical, but a lot of it is actually proxies, I would say. But there's also, simultaneously, we have to not disregard the small stuff, whether that's desks or books or writing utensils, I don't know what, office supplies. So I just point that out for, I guess, the public and the rest of the board, that I feel like this year in particular, or each year as we move forward, it's going to be more and more challenging because we have so many multiple levels and priorities. And the small stuff is actually big stuff cumulatively. And then the big stuff is important for policy reasons. So I just wanted to point out that that came up during the conversation.
I think that's a really fair summary of what the story of this year's budget is shaping up early to be. And I think that that pairs in a really important way with our current history, with the last 12 or 13 years of budget passing in this district. I think you're right. We always need to attend to the big, important directional pieces that are happening in the school district. And those are big instructional decisions and large community decisions that we're making. And how do we want to see our district evolve? At the same time, we're seeing impacts on those smaller levels. We're having a difficult time filling positions in our buildings for things like recess monitors, lunch monitors, and permanent substitutes, the building subs who come in every day. We heard a comment earlier about seeing principals covering instructional classes. That's happening. And so I think you're right. You heard the principals speak really articulately about the small things matter, because if the teachers and the principals are having their focus pulled away to those small things, then they're not focused on the big pieces that drive us forward as an instructional organization and that are focusing on deep student learning. I think one challenge for this year's budget is that those small, sometimes trivial day-to-day pieces are becoming more expensive to fund, because we've got to compete for daily subs with all the towns around us, and we're seeing challenges in hiring. You're about to look at a personnel issue where we lost a veteran staff member earlier this school year to a neighboring school district, and we saw a teacher with experience in the teens of years leaving us. And we're replacing that teacher with somebody that we're taking from a neighboring distance who has close to 30 years of teaching experience. So the dynamics, the technical dynamics of running the system are becoming a little more expensive. And that comes on the heels of 12 years of really trimming a budget and creating a really lean budget where at the end of every school year, we're turning back $5,000 or $10,000 of unspent monies out of a $68 or $69 million budget. And if you look at that over time, what that tells you is that we're spending every penny in the budget, so there's very little fat to move around. And so I do think that those elements together are going to create a challenging budget year where we're looking to do the big things well and right. We're looking to respond to groups who come out and ask for what sounds like small dollar amounts to fund a crew team or a cheer team or the hockey team, and then at the same time doing it in a reality where we've got a really lean budget, and it's not easy to move resources around where you're spending nearly every dollar before we close the book at the end of the school year. So I appreciate the observation. I think it's really, really on point, and it's going to be important over the next 8 or 12 weeks as we put this budget together.
Other thoughts on budget stuff at the moment? We'll be doing, obviously, a lot of talking budget over the next few months. Not only at these meetings, we will have a couple of meetings with the Board of Finance, the Operations Committee of the Board of Ed will, which usually includes all of us attending. We'll have these meetings with the Board of Finance. And again, continue to welcome input from the community as we do it. Excellent. So now we're going to move on to the board agenda. 11.1 is to act on a personnel item. I would just like to note that there was a slight typo in the document that represents the personnel item. We are actually ratifying an appointment for this teacher. I think it originally looked like it was a resignation. This is an appointment. So we're being asked to ratify the appointment of the following teachers: Cheryl Briganti, school psychologist for GHS and Guilford Lakes. Is there a motion to approve this appointment?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Looks like everyone. Terrific. Thank you. Next is to approve a donation of $5,004 from the Guilford Dugout Club, this is baseball, for the purchase of equipment. And we have a list of that equipment here: an 8-foot by 16-inch pro base trifold screen, an L screen, a pitching machine hack attack, and 15 green helmets. Again, those items total $5,004. Is there a motion to approve this donation from the Guilford Dugout Club to our baseball team?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And a thank you to the Guilford Dugout Club for supporting our students. 11.3 is to act on a donation of $3,580 from the Adams Yearbook Club for the purchase of 2 pop-up canopies. So these are 2 10 by 10 pop-up canopies with the Adams Raiders logo on them. Is there a motion to approve this donation?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's everyone, thank you. And a thank you to them. 11.4 is to vote on a donation of $1,269 from the GHS Music Boosters for a stipend to pay an advisor for the Music and Mentors program. Is there a motion to approve this donation?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's everyone, thank you. And thank you to the GHS Music Boosters. And really, thank you to all of our music and community boosters and clubs that support our students. They really serve an important role in that support. 11.5 is to receive for possible action the awarding of the bid for snow removal at Guilford High School. So we have before us, and Mrs. Trudeau went over this a little bit in our Operations Committee meeting just prior to this. But there, a bid went out, a request went out. There were 4 bids. She's nodding, thank you. And so this is the lowest bidder that we're being asked to award the bid to, Landmark Services. They have done this service for us over the last several years. And one of the things that we learned in the Operations Committee meeting is that wonderfully they have not increased their prices for many of those years. And we've been pleased with their services. We do snow removal for other schools, but the size of the parking lots and the expansive ground that has to be covered means that we do bid out the snow removal at Guilford High School. So we are being asked to approve the bid for snow removal to the lowest bidder, Landmark Services. Is there a motion to approve this bid?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
Just out of curiosity, why does the price go down once we get over a foot of snow?
It's a really
You
good
should have been
question.
at the operations.
Why don't you enlighten me, Mr. Delaventura?
It's anything over 12 inches, so that's in addition. So
That is
you-
for
So the
every
first
2 inches, it's for
12
every 2 inches
2 inches
over 12 inches.
Okay,
it's
so
a
the
great question.
first foot is the 6,000 number, and
Yes.
then everything
In
over is
addition,
an additional
yes.
1,200 bucks.
Every additional
Okay.
2
Let's
inches.
hope we don't have to
Yeah, I mean,
come to that.
school, school.
It's not
Who
gonna
needs to
happen
plow
ever,
if we
not
have that
even
much
once.
snow? We're not coming.
Okay. Any other questions, although, you might get.
I'm not.
Yelled at for asking those. All righty. Okay, next is to receive, this is a receive item. And what that means is that there will be opportunity for us to discuss. Tonight, we will not be acting on these items. This is the school calendars. until the December meeting. And so what that also means is that if there are members of the community who would like to provide input based on our discussion and/or the calendars, they should certainly feel free to reach out to us. So we have in front of us two drafts of a school calendar for the 2024-25 year. They are, per my review of them, the same except for the start date and then subsequently the end date. So draft number 1 proposes a opening day of school for September 3rd. For the 24-25 year, that is the day after Labor Day. So Labor Day is early next year. And then barring any days off due to snow or for other reasons, the last day of school per this calendar would be June 16th, which is a Monday. Draft number 2 that we have before us proposes a start day of school on August 29th. That is the Thursday prior to Labor Day. And then the closing day of school, again, barring any days off for snow or other reasons, would be Wednesday, June 11th. Dr. Freeman, am I correct, though, that in the comparison, that is the only difference between these two calendars?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the only difference in the two drafts that we have prepared for you this year.
Okay. So we have, we've gotten a number of communications from the public, some as many as a couple months ago, I think, when we were just starting school, some more recently. As well, we've already heard some of our members note that they've had conversations. I do have a question, Dr. Freeman, for you, because we've at least received one, if not more, communications asking to align the calendar with a regional or a state calendar. And it is my understanding that we are indeed aligned with a regional calendar. There's not necessarily a state calendar to align to. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, happy to. There is no such thing as a state school calendar. So the state mandates that you may not have school in July, and the state mandates that every student must have 180 contact days. Beyond that, the districts design individual calendars. What we have been doing for the last several years is working closely with the LEARN-RESC, the Regional Educational Service Center out of Old Lyme.
Right.
LEARN works collaboratively with school districts from Guilford through Stonington and as far north as Griswold can participate. LEARN puts together a shared calendar template is the language that we have called it. And so that calendar aligns all of the significant breaks, so all of the week-long breaks and long weekends are aligned in that calendar. It aligns professional development days so that districts can take advantage and visit each other and share on professional development days. The days in this calendar specifically would be the November 5th and the March 7th dates align. It also works to pull together some of those start and end dates, but then the districts then customize. Most districts will begin before Labor Day. Most districts will begin on that last Thursday in August. That is sort of the traditional start date. But there are a number of districts that will choose to start after Labor Day as well. Some districts in that area, in that region, still take a full week off in February, although most don't. Most have fallen to the shortened sort of long weekend February break. So again, both of the calendars that we provide to you align most of those events. And so it will be really unusual for us not to have the same April break as neighboring school districts, not to have the same winter break as neighboring school districts. I can guarantee you, whichever calendar you adopt, we will have the same start date as some districts, and we will have a different start date than others because every community has this conversation. Another thing that is important to note, specifically when we talk about that start date, and it has the greatest sort of impact maybe it's the least impact when you're talking about an early Labor Day.
Yeah,
It's
this year.
it's important to remember that the Labor Day before or after decision in this calendar only makes a difference of 2 school days. And then it's also worth noting, the state requires that every town have 180 student contact days. Some towns have 183, some have as many as 185 student days in the calendar. It is possible that Guilford could begin after Labor Day and still get out earlier than a neighboring district that begins before Labor Day this year if they have 185 student days. Now, a winter can change that because often districts that have the longer student calendar don't make up the first 2 or 3 snow days. They might lose them, and you could lose all the way down to 180. Because we only have 180 student days, we're required to make up immediately. If we have even 1 snow day, we will be required to make that day up. And that adds the other only unusual wrinkle to this calendar. A difference of only 2 days is really minimal, especially when you think about some districts having longer student days, but ending on a Monday is unusual. Now, what we didn't want to do was we didn't want to have Labor Day and then another day to push the start for school off until a Tuesday. We didn't see any reason that we could justify. So I do think that having a last day on Monday may make the decision a little sharper this year, having the last day of school hanging out there on a Monday. But again, it's New England. If we have even 1 snow day, it's going to change that decision as well. So it is purely a local decision. Even our leadership team has different opinions about which of these 2 calendars they prefer. What I will note, the other important and consistent features in these calendars, they do include 5 of those adult learning days that I talked about, 3 in the beginning of the school year, and I shared with you how exciting and how valuable those 3 days were early in the school year in the work that we did. 1 in November and 1 in March. I shared with you earlier tonight how exciting this last Tuesday was for adult learning in the district, and we're already looking forward to this March and the work that we'll be doing with Dr. Harrison. And so those are really important components. Both of these calendars also include 6 early release days, 6 identified Wednesdays where the students are dismissed early because, again, the teaching staff stays late on those days, and we grab a really rich and a really valuable half day of adult learning on those days where the students leave early, we stay late, and we get a lot of work and a lot of learning done in those afternoons. Those are the same in both calendars, but they are highlights of the calendar. We do focus on the adult learning around here.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
Just to note, Dr. Freeman, and this is something that the state changed a few years ago, we can set our graduation date at any point. We don't have to wait now till April to do so.
Correct.
And that's traditionally the last day of school. Yeah, okay. We have yet to vote
Right.
on that, but that's just another question I was getting from the community. Does the
Yes.
graduation day move? And I said, no, we now have the ability to set that
So you've all,
regardless
yes.
of what happens with snow days and whatnot.
You've already set the graduation
Yeah.
date for this calendar year, for this
Right.
school year. That's already locked in and won't be affected by any snow that we have in the next few months. We will be able to do the same thing for whichever of these
Yeah.
calendars that you adopt.
Thoughts, comments, discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have two big things, I guess I'll say. I am personally in favor of going back before Labor Day. I go back to the days when both of my children were in elementary school. I'm a full-time working single mom, and there's zero camps, there's zero anything. I had to take 2 weeks off of work just to make sure that my children had childcare. And that's a heavy burden on some, and some don't have that ability. Maybe they're teachers or some other profession where they just can't take that off. The availability of camps in June is tremendous. They start even the first 2 weeks of June. So that's my 2 cents on a personal note on that level. This year was unique. I did have 2 coaches come up to me and tell me that because Labor Day was a little bit later this year, they had great difficulty in scheduling this year. Because in that conference, in the SEC conference, we were the only school to go back after Labor Day. We couldn't start practice when the other teams did, and they had difficulty scheduling meets and games because of that. And so they were interested in having an earlier start date just on that level for the high schools, which I found interesting.
I've heard both of those pieces of feedback as well. I've heard both of those comments from different community members.
Okay.
Anecdotally, I'm also personally in favor of going back to the earlier start, but these days are long gone. But I think for me, one of the things I like for the younger kids is something about that transition back. There's something about a couple days and then a long
Yes.
weekend and then a 4-day. And it's just like a more gradual easing into the school year, at least for my kids.
Yeah, mine too. When transition's hard to begin with, yeah.
So we certainly hear it on both sides. What we don't hear often, though, is the staff.
Yeah.
What do we hear from the staff at all? I mean, is there any consensus what they prefer? I mean, I would imagine a lot of them have kids that are going back to other districts as well. I mean,
It is just like this conversation.
Yeah.
If anything, the only thing that I would say that I hear more than not is, and it changes, right, and it's good, is that I wish we were starting on the same calendar as my home community
Always,
is starting.
yeah.
And again, no matter which of these two calendars that you approve, you're going to get some of those right and you're going to get some of those wrong. There will be some, now, it is more common to start before Labor Day, but it is not unique to start after Labor Day. So again, I think that's the most common comment that I hear from staff. Many of our staff members have students who go to school in other communities, and they wish it was the same. I remember a year in my house where we had 4 different April vacations, and it was crazy. We had kids in 2 different school systems, and my wife and I were connected to 2 different school systems, and we had 4 different April vacations. We've solved that, but we have not solved the first day of school. And I don't hold any hope for there being a unified district, statewide calendar. I just, individual control is too strong a value in Connecticut. I don't see there being a state calendar at any time in the near future.
And to your point earlier, I mean, this is not as drastic as we've seen in years past.
No, there's been other years where it's a 5 or 6 day swing.
It's been significant.
This is one of the smallest swings we've seen. The only thing that makes this one, I think, a bigger challenge is that last day on Monday.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out. That's an unusual.
Can I ask you a question on that? Have you ever had a school year where you ended on the exact same last day that you anticipated the year before?
Yeah, I think fairly
Last year.
recently in Guilford, yeah. There was a year where we had a lot of
Last year.
delays, but no closures.
No closures.
Yes, yeah, I think fairly recently, yes.
But in your history?
Unusual, highly unusual,
well, the year-
highly unusual not to have at least one snow day.
This is a tangent, my apologies. The year that we voted and moved, as many did across the state, from a 5-day February vacation to a 2-day February vacation, I, as a board member, and we heard community back and forth, right, split on that. And I was representing the group that really wanted to keep the 5 days. And how many? We had like 11 snow days.
It was
that year.
bad.
I mean, it was
We
like
were worried we were gonna hit
insane
July.
How many snow days we had. And at one point, I literally said to my colleagues, like, naming that I was pushing for February vacation, and it's good we didn't have the 5 days. So, other thoughts or comments on this?
Dr.
current
Velez-Tracy, I think
calendar?
your opening comment was the most important, that it's going to be important in these next 4 weeks to
Yes.
community members to share their opinions with board members. They can do that by email, they can do that by stopping you in public, they can do that by
Right.
coming to the next meeting and commenting before you're asked to vote.
Yeah, it is really going to be important that we hear from the community on this issue, and just ask for the community's understanding if we get to that point and find ourselves, as we have in the past, hearing somewhat equally from both sides. But this is going to be a much easier decision if the public has weighed in.
Have
That
we
is
been
for
the
sure.
outlier on 180 days for a long time? We're one of the few districts at 180 versus 183.
I don't know that we're one of the few, but there have been precious few districts that have made the change to add days after 2008, 2009, when the budget landscape changed. So the districts that have longer calendars made those changes a long time ago in teacher negotiations, when it was a really different environment for the negotiation of the teacher contract and for the expectation of 5% and 6% increases from a local. And we haven't been in that reality for quite a while.
And I won't remember when it was. We did have one year, some time ago, where we built into the calendar, I want to say we built in 4 days expecting snow, only used 2 of them, and then
Yes.
had to create 2 vacation days
Yep.
in the last couple of months of school, which I suppose if you were a student, I don't want to speak for all students, was quite exciting, but if you were a parent,
Troubling for parents.
it was fairly disruptive. So then literally it lasted, my recall, a year.
We tried it once, yeah.
And then we said, nah, that's not
Yeah,
really
there was a
working
year
for
where I
us.
heard districts were pulling off like spring break, like they were pulling back on days of spring break to make up.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's messy.
So there is the strategy of building in 3 snow days, and then when you have a really mild
Mild year,
winter,
it's a
you end up
problem.
having to give those days back, and that's really difficult to schedule for parents.
parents.
Then there was the opposite, where if you have a late calendar and you start pushing into July, now you've got to start taking away that February long weekend, you've got to
Right.
take away days off of April break to get your 180 and still be done before July 1, because the state won't reduce the number of days for you and also won't allow you to have school into July. And I think if we didn't do it, we got really
got really
close that
close one
same
year.
year.
No,
That we
we
were
absolutely did.
preparing to start taking days
Out
off of April break.
Yeah. Other comments on this now?
You brought up contract negotiation. Has this ever been a discussion in contract negotiation, start and finish dates?
Not that I can.
So the actual start and finish dates are not negotiable in the contract. That's purely a managerial prerogative. The negotiation would be extending to 181 or 183 student days. You would have to negotiate, that would be a change in working conditions. Now, the only way to not do that in a negotiable way would be to cut down the number of professional development days to increase the number of student contact days. And I would want to have a real opportunity to have a healthy conversation about that. You've heard me talking about the importance of adult learning tonight. But our teachers are contracted for 185 days, and to change that would be a change in working conditions that would require a negotiation.
If we wind up going with the September 3rd start and that Monday end, would graduation be set on the Monday, or would you most likely push graduation back to Friday, the 13th of June?
We would need to have that conversation, and so I would want to talk to Ms. Chaff, and I think it's possible, but we would again have to sort of, I'd want to carefully read the legislation. I know that
Yeah,
you're
I'm
not
not sure we
required
can.
to have 180, I think you're required to schedule 180 days for the seniors. So it might be that we would have to target the Monday if we chose that calendar. I will read the legislation and answer that more specifically before you're asked to vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
really
think
good
I would love it
question.
if the public could comment on that too. I don't know how people feel about a Monday graduation.
But I thought last year we kept graduation to a Friday, but we had the kids come back for 2 days.
No, but that was
Because
because
snow
we had
reduced
to.
the calendar.
But you can't choose a graduation date ahead of time that doesn't allow for 180 days. If
Yeah.
you choose a graduation date and then have a couple of
And then
snow
stuff
days,
happens,
you
right.
can now in the state of Connecticut accommodate that, but we can't say, ugh, Monday stinks, let's do I don't think, and
No,
you're gonna check, but
I
it's my
think we have
understanding
to
as well.
I think we have to schedule
legislation
180
doesn't
days
allow
even for
that.
the seniors. And then if you make changes because of flooding or snow days or electrical issues, that you can accommodate for that. But I'll have to check if we can do it.
My
Yeah,
own,
I remember it the same way you did, Moira. I thought that we actually,
I don't
I
think
thought we
that's right.
scheduled
That's why I'm like,
it
I'm
prior
questioning
to
that.
any snow days. We knew
We
that
did.
it was gonna be.
but you did,
You
but
can't
it
schedule-
accommodated 180 days, right?
So they
So
were
them
gonna
graduating on
essentially
Friday is
graduate and then
179
go to
days.
school for another day?
No. So when we chose the graduation date, it accounted for 180 days of in-class learning.
Then it snowed.
And then it snowed and then we had to move. We can't take this calendar next year, let's say we choose the one with a Monday date and say, in October, we'd rather have kids graduating the Friday before, that'll be 179 days. We
Right.
can't pre-plan that way.
Okay.
I
thought that we
think,
had
but
to
I'm gonna
plan
check,
last
I'm
year.
gonna check and clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah, check on that, folks.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, that's.
Other comments on the calendar now?
I think the only thing to keep in mind as we discuss this, Juneteenth does come into play and could potentially come into play should we have
Yes.
Yep,
3
national
snow
holiday.
days.
Yep,
And we did last year. Last year, we had school scheduled on the 20th. Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
How many, what percentage of the student body attended that day?
I'd have to check for you.
Like the vast majority?
Yes. Yeah, off the top of my head, I know that we had most of our students. I'm sure it was higher absenteeism than a normal day, but it wasn't a ghost town around here, no.
All right, it's been said already a couple of times, but again, for folks in the community who would like to weigh in and provide the board some feedback on these decisions, please reach out. Our emails are on the Board of Ed website, and we will, at our December 11th meeting, be deciding on this, so there will also be public comment for items on the agenda prior to a discussion and a vote on this. Okay. Item 11.7, this is also a receive item. This is the Board of Ed meeting calendar draft. So this identifies the schedule of meetings for the 2024 calendar year. It identifies the regular meetings that typically happen on the second Monday of the month at 7:30. You'll note there are a couple of instances in which there is a Tuesday meeting noted. The first is for the budget meetings that happen at the end of January, and the second is because of a holiday in October. All these meetings are scheduled to happen in the library where we are currently. And then also a schedule for our workshop meetings. These are typically the fourth Monday of the month and occur 9 months out of the year. They don't happen in the summer and they don't happen in December. So this is a receive item. We will also vote on this next month, but folks can consider that. Any questions about this schedule from any of my colleagues? Okay. And then also receive item is the schedule for our committee meetings, the operations, the curriculum instruction and assessment, and the policy committee meetings. They are listed here. Operations committee prior to our regular meeting, again, typically the second Monday of every month at 6 p.m. Also happening here in the library. And then the policy committee and the curriculum instruction and assessment committee, taking turns essentially on the Mondays prior to our workshop meetings. We are back to rotating amongst our schools, which I'm actually quite excited about. Although I will note that elementary school chairs are short after a couple hours. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's great. It's really great to be in each of the schools. I'm really quite happy to be rotating again. So please, I ask my colleagues to look at that. We'll be voting on that next month as well. 11.9 is to act on a recommendation for the policy committee.
This is policy 3724. We reviewed this at our regular meeting last month. It is a dining services meal charging change to keep to keep up with changing policy in the state. It disallows us from public shaming or from excluding any child who can't afford lunch from getting that lunch. Any questions? Everyone's had a while to look at this one.
Yeah, we've received this last month. Obviously, I agree. I think it's an important thing to make sure that the kids are not suffering from kind of essentially being identified as struggling.
It's important to note that we're making this change not because we were shaming people before.
100%.
Yes, thank you.
But only because we want to make sure that we get the language of the state.
That's right. And in fact, we had language that kind of tried to do that
Yes.
already, and this is now updated language. That's a really important, no, that is definitely important.
Thank you.
Excellent, okay. Is there a motion to approve the changes to policy 3724, dining services meal charging?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's everyone, thank you. Okey dokey, reports on committees, policy committee, do you have anything else to report out?
I do. We are going to change the time of our next meeting. Is that official? Would you like to officially change it to 6:30 for our start time?
We had talked about that,
Do I-
at least exchanged some emails.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of that.
Okay, so we are
Just for
going
this
to,
meeting.
for our next policy meeting in a couple of weeks,
Okay,
we're going to move the time back to 6:30.
okay,
We just don't have a tremendous amount of new policy to cover. And in that meeting, we are going to ask policy committee members and other members of the Board of Education to come prepared with a list of policies that you would like us to review throughout the year.
excellent. So that's Monday, November 27th, at 6:30. Operations committee.
Not a lot to update. As always, Mr. Gurnham had a very healthy facilities report. I think of note, our district-wide security enhancements are just about complete. Testing took place over the last few weeks, and that project is close to finished.
Excellent. Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Committee.
You know, we met 2 weeks ago. Dr. Goss reported to us the progress that is being made on the implementation, the planning for and the implementation of the new state standards on health and physical education, with an emphasis not simply on teaching students how to play sports, but also the much larger sense of wellness, lifelong wellness, and the development of fitness skills that can be integrated across the entire curriculum rather than just thinking of these things as gym or physical education. We also heard about some math curricular revisions, K through 12, to sort of vertically integrate the way we're teaching math and trying to increase student engagement with math, with some very exciting math curricular innovations. We also heard a preview of the results of the state assessment data, and we'll get a more formal report on that in a few months. So,
Excellent, thank you. Any liaisons to town committees have anything kind of school-related? No? All right. And Learn Board of Directors, we're still working on that. Public comments. There's an opportunity here now for anyone in the public to address the board on an item not on the agenda. And we ask that you limit it to 3 minutes if you'd like to comment. Is there anyone who'd like to comment? We just ask that you give your name and address, please.
My name's Alyssa Stevens. I live at 135 Millstone Drive. Just a quick comment to say I'd support an earlier start date. I have 2 young kids, and it is really, really, really difficult to find care the last couple of weeks of summer when all of the camps pretty much have ended because college kids go back to school. And so there's only one that I know of, the Racket Club, that has camp, which obviously can't service all of the kids in Guilford. So I would really encourage looking at an earlier date, even maybe earlier than what's being proposed this year for years in the future to bridge that gap. And also just to say that I would support too looking at increasing the number of support staff that we have in our schools. I have 2 kids in elementary school, and it's very apparent right now that there's people that are being stretched very thin to cover kids who have more acute needs for whatever reason. So for the kids' sake and the staff's sake, I think it would be really helpful to have more support staff across the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to address the board? All right, hearing none. Any closing comments from my colleagues?
Public input on the calendar, please.
What?
Public input on the calendar. Yes.
Public input on the calendar.
Yes.
We'll say it one more
Love to
time.
hear
Excellent. All right, I'm going to entertain, please, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
we're moving to a little bit.
So one of my